Revealed, 12 terrifying secrets of the cursed Isle of the Dead, haunting tales from the shadows. Jessica stumbled through the door, the weight of the world pressing down on her as she locked it behind her. Another grueling shift washed over her like a tide, leaving her shaking. She exhaled slowly, trying to shake off the dread that seeped into her bones, a dread that had turned every typical Wednesday evening into a parade of shadows. Max should be asleep, nestled under his dinosaur blanket, safe from the nightmares that roamed just outside their home. But tonight, as she stepped inside, his small figure blurred against the flickering television light. "Mommy!" he squealed, his bright blue eyes wide and filled with a comfort she feared would soon change. But Jessica's heart sank. She felt the familiar clutch of anxiety as she managed a weary smile, the gnawing realization of her vulnerability prickling at her spine. The walls that concealed their sorrowful past seemed to hum with tension, reminding her of the husband who vanished 5 years prior, his absence a perpetual ache in her heart, a ghost hovering in the corners of her existence. It started with the whispers. The strange, unsettling murmurs that danced through the air on her way home, swirling around her like fog, haunting her thoughts just enough to keep her awake at night. "Just my imagination," she reassured herself, but doubt gnawed her. That night, under the pale ghostly glow of the moon, before a detour home directed her to an abandoned dock hidden among the weeds, curiosity turned into a morbid compulsion. A derelict ferry bobbed gently in the water, a broken beast that seemed to sigh under the weight of memories long lost. "You shouldn't be here," a voice echoed in her head, warning her as she stepped closer, the cold creeping up from the ground into her bones. Legends of the cursed Isle of the Dead ran through her mind, a place where souls drift endlessly, where one could discover truths better left buried. A chill skittered down her spine, but she couldn't turn away. As she stood there, a swell of pounding anxiety surged within her, and just as if stirred from a slumber, the boat twitched, an unnatural tremor that sent her heart racing. With a quick intake of breath, she turned on her heel and fled. The following day, chaos unfolded. Strange occurrences plagued her neighborhood: disappearing pets, the eerie wailing of children echoing in the night. Jessica's phone buzzed, neighbors whispering warnings of things lost and forbidden. Morning coffee turned jittery under the shadow of an unsettling new neighbor who claimed to have a gift for seeing what others ignored. She invited Jessica in for a calming chat, though the words slipped through like sand, leaving an impression of unease. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Moments later, Jessica was jolted back to reality. Max no longer just played, he began talking to someone invisible, laughter bubbling from his small lips like the plucking of strings from a spectral melody. Her heart pounded, panic surging as the silhouette of the fairy loomed closer in her mind. It promised mystery, it fed on her fears, whispering secrets she couldn't fathom. And as dusk descended, Max crept to the window, staring at the darkness outside, his innocent face outlining shadows clinging to her sanity. "Mom, the boat wants to take me," he murmured, and the world shuddered at the words, drowning them in uncertainty. The pressing question surged, relentless: what would she surrender to save her son from whatever lurked in the depths beyond? A heavy silence enveloped Jessica as Max's innocent declaration hung thick in the air. The flickering television cast eerie shadows, making the room feel alive with hidden watchers. Every creak of the house seemed to echo the unspoken fears wrapping around her like a vice, her stomach knotting tight. "Max, sweetheart, we don't talk about the boat," she stammered, forcing a smile that felt like glass shards in her throat. Her mind raced, desperate for a way to anchor him back to safety, away from the whispers that crawled into the corners of their lives. The very mention of the boat set off alarm bells in her mind, amplifying the dread that had already taken root. It was no longer just the creeping fog on her way home, it pulsed around their home, making the walls seem as if they were leaning closer under the oppressive weight of their sorrow. "Why does it want me, Mommy?" Max's voice cut through her thoughts. He turned to her, oblivious to the icy tendrils creeping around her heart. The child's white smile faded, giving way to confusion, and Jessica's heart stuttered in her chest as the shimmer of innocence began to crack. Because it wants you to listen. Just pretend you don't hear it, she urged, fear lacing her voice. But inside, she cringed at the indignity of her own cowardice. How does one block out that which appears to be begging for attention? Night fell swiftly, blanketing the world in an oppressive dark. What should have brought a shroud of quiet only heightened the sense of danger. Jessica could feel it, an ominous presence settling over everything, a sentinel watching them with hangman-esque glee. Max tugged at her shirt, his little body trembling as he pointed toward the window. "Mom!" he whispered, voice quivering. "There's someone out there." Her heart raced as she turned slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. She stepped closer, peering through the glass. The streetlights outside flickered, then died, plunging the neighborhood into deeper shadow. And there, just beyond reach of light, stood a figure. Tall and frail, it seemed to sway like a ghoul trapped in dance. "Mommy, it's got a face like the boat." Max's words squeezed the air from her lungs, and dread unfurled in the pit of her stomach. "Max, get away from the window," she hissed, her voice breaking. She didn't want him near whatever evil lurked. But the little boy didn't listen, rapt focus locked on the figure. A scream rippled through the silence, a piercing wail that echoed off the houses, sending knots of terror straining through Jessica's veins. From outside, the figure raised a hand, its fingers stretching in unnatural angles, beckoning her child. She watched in horror as Max leaned forward, transfixed, eyes shimmering as if he recognized something familiar. "Mommy, I have to go with it," he murmured, a soft resonance that shattered Jessica's resolve. "No," she gasped, rushing to him, grabbing his shoulders firmly. Desperation clawed at her soul. Looking out again, the figure was gone, reduced to a shapeless pool of darkness at the edge of the street. The air vibrated with tension, the house itself alive with unease. "Please, let us just go to bed," she pleaded, moving Max back from the window, wrapping protectively around him. But even as she tried to soothe him, the whispers grew louder in her mind, intertwining with her thoughts. What if the only escape from this terror required something she feared to confront? As she tucked Max in, his breathing steadied, but Jessica felt the insidious pull of dread creeping into the corners of her mind. She had to face the truth of the fairy, of the cursed all that beckoned to them. What price would she pay to keep her son safe from the shadows creeping ever closer? The questions lingered as her eyelids fluttered with exhaustion, the call of sleep no longer a refuge. And just as she started to drift, a low giggle escaped from the hallway, freezing her blood. "Mom, the boat is singing," Max whispered from his room, and Jessica realized too late there was no escape. What awaited her in the darkness beyond the walls? The chilling giggle echoed through the house like shattering glass. Jessica jolted awake, her heart thundering against her ribs. She glanced at Max's sleeping form, his small chest rising and falling peacefully, seemingly unaware of the terror that wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket. She held her breath. It couldn't be real, right? "The boat is singing," the words echoed again in her mind, and she felt a tightening in her throat. The whispers curled around her, cold and mocking. Had the boat truly been calling to Max? What horrors had been unleashed? Erasing the memory of the figure outside, she crept toward the hallway. Each step felt like walking through a graveyard, the air thick with apprehension. She strained to hear, hoping to dismiss what she'd just heard as an illusion, a trick of her tired, stressed mind. But then she heard it again, a soft, haunting melody slipping from under Max's door, like the lullaby of the lost. "Max, sweetheart?" she whispered, standing before his door, the wood cool against her palm. She listened, but only the singing filled the air, an eerie symphony that toyed with her senses. She felt drawn to it, but the maternal instinct screamed at her to run. Pushing the door open slowly, her breath caught as she stepped into the room. The glow of the moonlight filtered through the window, painting silver ribbons across Max's bed. He lay there, eyes wide and glassy, staring not at her but at something beyond the void where shadows danced. "Max," she urged, panic edging her voice. "What are you looking at?" He didn't move. His gaze was fixated on the wall, and the frightened recognition clawed at Jessica's sanity. The singing seemed to rise and fall, shifting with each pulse of cold winds that permeated through the window. It felt as if the very room pulsed with a heartbeat, drawing her closer into its intimacy. Mom, it wants to take me, Max muttered, still ensnared by whatever unseen force was pulling him. It says I belong to the boat. No, you don't. You have to listen to me. Jessica cried, panic rising in her throat. She lunged forward, grabbing his shoulders, but he felt so light, so fragile in her hands. She shook him gently, desperate to bring him back from the brink. It's lying. We can't go anywhere. Suddenly, the singing intensified, a chorus of discordant voices rising up, each indistinguishable from the other yet woven in harmony. An icy breath brushed past Jessica, and she staggered back, the room closing in around her. And then she saw a faint outline creeping into the room, tendrils spilling from the corner like dark smoke. The figure that had stood outside now manifested before her, a grotesque wraith with a face like the boat, a warped reflection of the vessel she had feared since childhood. Leave him alone! She screamed, feeling her courage bolster against the overwhelming dread. The figure paused, eyes narrowing as if assessing her worth. Mommy, Max's voice cracked, pulling her focus back to him. His expression twisted between confusion and trust. I can go. It's okay, desperation clawed at Jessica. No. Max, you can't. But even as she shouted, she felt a strange tug in her heart, as if something deep within resonated with the calls of the boat. A sickening feeling of betrayal flickered to life. What if this was where they truly belonged? Mommy, it's time, Max whispered, his voice now echoing the cold certainty of the figure. The darkness thickened and Jessica found it hard to breathe. The whispers turned into a piercing scream, pressing against her ears, drowning her thoughts. She felt the shadows twist around her, and for an instant, the fear broke, replaced by a chilling calm. Jessica, a voice hummed through the chaos, patient and persistent. Come join us. In this moment, caught in the horrors that danced before her, she realized the fight was only beginning. The shadows craved more than just her son, they wanted her too. As the singing morphing into a nightmarish chant wrapped around her, she clung tighter to Max, heart racing. What price would she pay to save him now, as the darkness closed in? Suddenly, with a blinding burst, the singing stopped. Silence fell like a shroud. And in the stillness, a single, haunting question lingered: who had truly summoned whom? The truth awaited just beyond the clutches of the shadows, and this was only the beginning. Jessica gasped, the silence crashing over her like a wave. The absence of sound felt unnaturally loud, amplifying her heartbeat, a war drum pounding in her chest. As she blinked, the figure loomed closer, its dark tendrils reaching out like the fingers of a drowned hand emerging from a grave. The cold smothered her. Max! She screamed, shaking him harder, but his expression remained vacant. His eyes seemed to glimmer with something deeper, something dark and ancient. It was as if the boy she knew had been replaced by this thing that wanted to take him. The room darkened around them. She felt the shadows knot together, coiling tighter as if they danced with malevolent glee. She could taste the cold metal of fear in her mouth, a bitter tang that made her stomach churn. Max, please. You're my world. Come back to me. He jerked, as if awakening from a trance. Mommy? The flicker of recognition flashed across his face, only to be crushed beneath the weight of the shadows. I'm here. I'm right here. Panic suffocated her. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in, and she saw the edges of the darkness whispering promises of surrender to Max. I don't want to go, he mumbled, tears streaming down his cheeks, reflecting the thin beam of moonlight. The shadows hesitated, their grip slackening for just a moment. Then don't. Fight it. Jessica felt an electric thrill, a spark of hope igniting in her chest. She cupped Max's face in her hands, forcing him to look into her eyes. You have to fight. Remember the stories of the boat, the people it stole? Max nodded slowly, as if each movement required effort. But it says it will make me happy. You don't know if you'll be happy. It's lying. A violent shiver swept through the room, and then a thunderous crash, shaking the walls and sending shivers down Jessica's spine. The window shattered, the shards falling like deadly rain. No! She yelled, shielding Max, as the darkness surged forward, a massive wave of despair crashing over them both. Mommy! Max screamed, his voice slicing through the chaos, pulling her back to focus. Then out of the darkness flooded the memories: the boat anchored at the dock, its eerie glow, its haunting composition. She recalled the stories whispered among the locals, mothers warning their children. The boat was alive, a thing that beckoned the lost and forsaken. Jessica, the voice of the wraith, echoed, as if it fed off her memories. You know the truth. Before she could respond, the figure surged closer, tendrils inching toward her. They felt like ice slithering over her skin. With no choice, Jessica drew on every ounce of strength, desperation coursing through her veins. Max! She cried, feeling the reality of her world slip. Time felt irrelevant against the backdrop of madness, the shadows relentless in their pursuit. We can fight it. Stay with me. With each word, the warmth of her love flowed toward him, filling the room with a soft glow that draped like a protective shroud. The whispers faded slightly, illustrations of twisted faces peering back at her through the gloom, momentarily hesitant. And then came the voice again, slithering through their bond like a serpent. Join us. It's better in the dark, Jessica. Embrace it. Max's breathing steadied, and their eyes locked. A flicker of understanding passed between them. A spark ignited in Jessica's gut, igniting an ancient knowledge. You may want him, she spat, finding strength in defiance, but you'll never take him. With an anguished cry, she thrust her will outward, pouring every ounce of maternal love and fierce determination into it. The wraith recoiled, darkness spilling back into the shadows. But just as she felt the tide turning, reality fractured again. A shadow slipped between them, something new emerging, a creature born from their fears, shaped by every secret hidden from her. Max? She called softly, the darkness swirling with malignant thrill. But the creature grinned, sharp teeth glinting in the moonlight. You can't hold back the truth forever, Jessica. What have you hidden from your son? What was it that she hadn't told Max? The shadows shifted closer, grasping at the remnants of her resolve. And in that moment of lingering doubt, an ominous chill wrapped around her heart, leading them down a path of truth she had hoped to keep buried forever. What lurking secret would her past unleash upon them? The darkness had only begun to unveil the horrors hidden in the depths of the cursed boat. The creature's grin widened, stretching impossibly, revealing rows of gleaming sharp teeth. Its voice was a sickly sweet melody that twisted the air around them. What dark truths haunt your heart, Jessica? What lies have you spun to shield your precious boy? She stumbled back, dread pooling in her gut, her breaths quick and shallow. Memories, half forgotten, flickered before her eyes, pale faces in the gloom, desperate pleas whispered in the dead of night. She wanted to scream, to deny everything, but silence hung thick like a veil, suffocating her spirit. Jessica, reveal your fear, the creature hissed, tendrils reaching out, clawing at her memories. What will you sacrifice to save him? Would you trade your past for his future? An ancient weight pressed on her, heavy and unyielding. She thought back to the boat, how she'd ignored its warnings, how she'd silenced the fears of the locals. It was just stories. Stories to scare children, she whispered, but the words felt brittle, crumbling against the essence of the creature. Max, though still gripped by the shadows, looked at her with wide, terrified eyes. Mommy? What's happening? He stammered, the innocence of his voice cutting through the chaos. Stay with me, Max. She shouted, the urgency pounding through her like thunder. Fight it. You can break free. But the creature laughed, a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through the air. Fight? Why bother? Happiness awaits in surrender. It turned its gaze to her, a crazed light glinting in its eyes. Tell him the truth, dear Jessica. Tell him what you've hidden. Tension wrapped around her heart as a surge of memories began flooding back, bitter truths too painful to revisit. She could see their house so many years ago, feel the warmth of summer days that had turned colder since. How she had shielded Max from her past mistakes. From choices that had echoed across time. I killed them, she finally whispered, her voice splintered. I let them take what was mine. I didn't save them. The shadows writhed, absorbing her confession, feeding off her guilt like parasites. Yes. Let it out. Let him know the woman he admires is just as frail as the rest, it taunted, its voice curling around her, squeezing tighter. Max's eyes widened. Mommy, what do you mean? The fight was slipping from her grasp, the shadows clawing at Max, whispering lies of safety and warmth. You weren't there. I tried to escape. The words spilled from her, fragile and fearful. I didn't save them, Max. Not your father, not the others. A flash of recognition sparked in Max's gaze, and she saw understanding tainted with betrayal. Is that why the boat came for me? He murmured, horror lacing his voice. Because you couldn't save them? A snarl erupted from the creature, the shadows tightening their hold. Let the truth burn, Jessica. They churn in your guilt, they thrive in your regrets. Share it with him. Panic clawed at Jessica's chest, clawing for air. She grabbed Max's hands, squeezing as if their bond could hold together the fabric of their reality, but the creature's laughter echoed all around them, on the brink of drag both into an abyss. Her heart raced as the room blurred, shadows weaving their tapestry of despair, intertwined with flashes of her past the boat, the fog, and haunting voices that echoed through her memories. Every moment ripped away at her defenses. I am not afraid, she declared, though doubt lingered, threatening to engulf her wavering spirit. You won't take him. In that moment of defiance, she felt something shift, a crack in the shadows that threatened to swallow them whole. Yet, it wasn't enough. They needed more than courage, they needed to confront the truth head-on. With trembling conviction, she turned to Max. I'll never give up on you. But to save us, we have to face what we've hidden, she urged, searching his eyes for a spark of hope. Mommy, Max whispered, trembling, what if the truth is worse? A shudder of apprehension chilled her spine as the creature hissed with delight. Oh, it will be, it always is. The darkness. Inside you both craves to know. She could feel the shadows inching closer, the air thick with their desperate hunger. Would they both survive the unearthing of their buried fears, or would the darkness finally claim victory? The ground beneath her shifted, the very essence of reality fracturing as dread tightened its grip. Would they plunge together into the depths, or could love still anchor them to the light? As the walls pulsated with shadows, the question loomed as ominously as their surroundings. Would they find the strength to fight, or would the revelations tear them apart forever? The shadows convulsed, swirling like a storm of despair around them. Jessica felt the weight of each memory turn to ice in her veins, the walls contracting as if the darkness sought to suffocate them altogether. Max's small hands trembled against hers, and she wished she could shield him from the truth, the biting reality that loomed just beyond the edge of her consciousness. What if the truth is worse? He repeated, his voice a quaver of fear, and Jessica felt the quaking in her own heart echo his. The creature lunged closer, its sickly sweet breath brushing against her skin, igniting a primal sense of terror deep within. Fear not, dear child. Come taste the truth, it crooned, its grin sharp and gleaming like a predatoress. The air thickened around them, charged with a dreadful expectation, igniting memories she had long buried. Jessica fought to hold on to her son. No! She shouted, a desperate plea that fell on deaf ears as the shadows reached for her. Don't listen! But the creature laughed, a sound that dripped with malice. Why not share? The truth shall free you both, it howled. In that moment, the floor began to quake, a shudder that ran like electricity through the splintering wood. The walls bore down, and a horrible crack appeared, gaping as if the very earth wanted to swallow them whole. I was weak, she stammered, grappling with years of buried feelings. I let them take my husband. I let fear take me to the edge. The shadows around them chittered in glee, twisting and writhing like snakes. Max's grip loosened, terror igniting in his eyes. Mommy, help! He cried, and Jessica felt her heart lurch. It was happening. The shadows were pulling him in. No! Max! She lunged toward him, but the darkness surged like a tidal wave, surging between them, a chasm that widened as the creature's laughter reverberated in her ears. Let me show you how the sacrifice always ends. It taunted, dragging memories from the depths of her mind. Faces pale, ghostly figures distorted by pain and regret. She could see them now, screaming for her help, their voices echoing through her. But one voice rose above the rest, a distant cry that twisted her heart. "Mommy!" It was her husband, his voice barely a whisper within the storm, resonating with anguish. "No! I couldn't. I wouldn't, not again." The creature writhed in delight, drawing closer as the tension crackled like a live wire. "See? You failed them all. This is where you belong." Despair clawed at her throat, tightening her chest, but within that icy grip surged a flicker of defiance. "I may have failed," she gasped, "but I won't fail Max. I will fight." With a primal scream, she pushed forward against the shadows, forcing them back as an image flashed before her, the boat in the mist, the cries of her family. The truth beat in her chest. She had to confront everything she had tried to forget. "Together!" she shouted, taking Max's hand. "Together, we can break free." They stood on the precipice of dark revelations, her past clawing at her, but as long as they were tethered by this bond, hope glimmered, no matter how faint in the oppressive darkness. The ground split apart below them, the abyss greedily yawning wide. Together, they stepped closer, aware of the unseen threat lingering just below the surface. The creature screeched, furious at her defiance. "What a pathetic attempt to flee! You don't even know what's waiting for you down there." Jessica's heart raced as she looked down into the black chasm, deeper and more foreboding than anything she had ever known. The whispers became louder, tantalizing and horrifying all at once. "Mommy, what if it's true?" Max stammered, squeezing her hand tighter. "If it's true," Jessica whispered, dread crawling up her spine. "Then we face it together." But the shadows were relentless, closing in on them again, urging a bargain she wasn't ready to make. Would she plunge into the darkness, seizing the horrifying truth, or would they find a way to navigate this nightmare together? As the echoes of her past roared back to life, she felt herself teetering on the brink, the truth lurking just out of reach. What awaited them in that unfathomable void? The walls around them began to dissolve into nothingness. Would they forge a path through the darkness, or would the very fabric of their reality unravel right before their eyes? Jessica could feel Max's heart racing next to her, matching the pounding in her own chest. The air grew stronger, charged with an electric dread, as the shadows pressed closer, their whispers weaving through the chaos a tapestry of terror that entwined every thought. "What if it's true?" Max's voice broke through the din, innocent yet terrifying in its implication. The realization sunk into Jessica, sharp and cold like a blade. What if facing the truth wasn't a choice, but a death sentence? "Max," she said, her urgency spilling into the spaces between them. "We need to stay focused. No matter what we hear, no matter what we see, we cannot give in." The creature laughed again, its tone dripping with venom. "Oh, how noble! But it's not merely hearing the truth, it's about the price you pay for knowing it." Each word dripped like acid, melting away her resolve. Experience clawed at Jessica's memory. A boat ride, a storm, fear of the deep waters. She shoved the visions aside, but they clawed back, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. Max's eyes widened as they finally landed upon her, an understanding gnawing at his childish face. "I don't want to know," he pleaded, his voice a whisper against the raging torrent of dark. Clenching her jaw, Jessica spun to face the churning void below them. "Neither do I. But we have to. We can't let it decide for us." With that statement hovering in the air, the ground crumbled around them. Pieces of wood and stone fell into the abyss, clouding the darkness momentarily as they tumbled. Every shudder of the collapsing ground felt like a countdown. On the edge of sanity, she fought to hold the raw power of her love for her son. "Mommy, I'm scared." Max's small voice filled her with unbearable sorrow. "Me too, sweetie. But fear doesn't own us. We own our fear." The shadows recoiled a fraction as if her words had stung them. The creature hissed, a sound that slithered into her ears, sick with menace. "You think your bond can protect you? It is a fragile thing, a mere thread in the darkness. Imagine, one slip and everything you love will be consumed." A flicker of doubt crawled into her mind, trying to take root. But she shoved it aside and focused on the warmth radiating from Max's hand. The moment emitted a pure clarity as she reminded herself of what she fought for. Together, Max. We're stronger together. Suddenly, the ground heaved once more, and the chasm widened with a malevolent roar, swallowing cries from the faces flickering in the dark. The shadows laughed in unison, as if they were feeding on their fears. What will you do then, when the truth becomes liquid fire in your veins? It taunted, its piercing eyes fixing on hers like a hunter to prey. Let it burn! Jessica shouted back, feeling a flicker of fierce strength. If it means saving my son, I will take that fire. Just then, Max's voice quivered as he braved to ask, the truth, what if it doesn't save us? Jessica felt the air chill. Not save them. Could it condemn them instead? The ground trembled violently, dark laughter swirling like a storm. You already bear the worst truth, the creature hissed, its face transforming into a grotesque mockery of her own. You are the sacrifice, doomed to witness everything slip through your fingers. Have you forgotten already? No! She yelled, each syllable a shield against the crashing despair. But the shadows surged with renewed vigor, a wave crashing over her resolve, whispering dark secrets stolen from her past, reeking of loss and regret. And with each grasp of the shadows, pieces of her memories surfaced like ugly fish from a rotting tide. She fought, she struggled against the torrent pulling at her very essence. Suddenly, before her, luminous tendrils of light flickered within the dark, like stars beckoning from a suffocating void. Mommy! It's so dark! Max's voice trembled, rising above the chaos, and she could see the terror in his wide eyes, a reflection of her own. Hang on, Max. Please. She cried, feeling the pull of malevolence dragging her closer to those lurking depths, to face what she vowed never again to confront. But the light spoke, powerful and profound. Do you dare cross over? The truth awaits, but are you prepared to pay the price? The shadows convulsed as if sensing an opening, and the temperature around them dropped dramatically, icy fingertips igniting every sense. Could she embrace that beckoning light, risking everything, to discover if they could escape? As the shadows closed in, devouring her scream, one final thought echoed like a funeral dirge: what lay waiting on the other side of that illuminating truth? The light pulsated, an intoxicating glow that seemed to promise salvation, but Jessica couldn't shake the nagging sense of peril. Are you ready, Max? She whispered, her resolve trembling like a candle in a harsh wind. Mommy, I don't want to. His eyes darted, searching desperately for escape, but there was none to be found. The ground continued to rumble beneath them, gnawing at their feet, singeing the edges of their hope. Jessica grasped his hand tighter. We have to trust it. The luminous light grew brighter, blinding her momentarily. The shadows shrieked, their forms twisting in agony as if a flame had scorched them. Fools! The creature spat, its voice a frigid wind cutting through the warmth of the light. The truth holds deeper horrors than you can fathom. Throbbing pain coursed through Jessica's temples as memories erupted like a dam, jagged images of loss overwhelming her senses. She saw her late husband, laughter tinged with grief, and then their first family vacation, paddle boats gliding against a calm lake, the morning sun warming their skin. But shadows cast then were nothing compared to those now surging towards her. Mommy! Max squeaked, his voice shaking with raw fear. Her heart shattered at the weight of his anguish. Focus, Max. Please. Jessica forced her eyes away from the swirling chaos. In that moment, she felt the essence of the light brush against her skin, a fragile warmth that flickered against the chill threatening to consume them. Let us show you, it whispered, and she could feel the ground beneath her shift. With a lurch, they were hurled forward, slipping beyond the darkness. As if breaking through the surface of an abyss, cold fingers grasped at her ankles, desperate to drag her down. She held Max closer, their bodies pressing together, searching desperately for strength in each other's embrace. And just like that, they broke through. The air changed brighter, cleaner, but sharp like the edge of glass. She gasped, inhaling the sweetness of freedom, yet a sense of foreboding crawled at the base of her throat. Look, Mommy! Max squealed, pointing in awe, but Jessica couldn't share in his wonder. The landscape stretched before them, a vast meadow swathed in light and laced with eerie shadows, vibrant flowers contrasting sickly against the dark tendrils lying just outside the embrace of warmth. "Stay close," she commanded, her voice steely as the shadows writhed behind them, howling in fury. "Why is it so quiet?" Max asked, eyes wide with excitement that shifted to unease. A chill swept through the clearing as a figure emerged from the flickering horizon, tall and distorted, cloaked in ethereal light. "Ah, the Wanderers," it purred, lips curling into a grotesque smile that spoke of ancient secrets and silent curses. "Who are you?" Jessica breathed, a mix of dread and curiosity tightening her gut. "The Truth Keeper," it cooed, spreading long, spindly fingers, taut as string. "I hold the key to your darkest nightmares, but you must first surrender your burdens." "I want tea," Jessica shouted, clutching Max tighter. "We will not pay that price." "Then you shall remain shackled, lost in the shadows." It hissed, and the air thickened with an impending terror as the realm shifted, darkening around her. The shadows surged, ravenous, as if drawn to the very core of her uncertainty. They clawed and pulled, sinking into her skin like needles. "Show us the truth. Surrender now," the creature demanded, voice echoing with sinister glee. "No!" she screamed, the desperation clawing at her chest. The world quaked as the truth slithered closer, an entity hungry for the pain it would extract. "We'll fight. We'll fight together." But with one invasive breath, the ground beneath them shattered again, an infinite void threatening to swallow them whole. The Truth Keeper laughed a sound like crackling ice, and Jessica felt the warm glow of light begin to flicker, her resolve waning against the overwhelming darkness. "Max!" she screamed as the abyss yawned wider, catching her breath in terror. "Hold on to me." But as she reached for her son, a chilling realization hit her. The shadows had already taken root. Perhaps the truth was simply a veil for deeper darkness. Perhaps the real question was, what if the truth was something she could never bear to know? The ground trembled, shadows swirling, a cacophony of lost voices rising from the depths. As the light flickered, revealing the monstrous silhouette of their fears, Jessica heard a whisper curling around her thoughts, "Are you ready for what lies beneath?" And with that, everything went black. Darkness enveloped them thick, suffocating, like a shroud pulled over the last flicker of a dying candle. Jessica's heart raced, pounding hard against her ribs as uncertainty clawed at her throat. She could barely breathe. "Max!" She strained to find him, her fingers stretching into the black void. "Max!" Panic twisted her voice, raw and urgent. Where was her son? The shadows danced around her, mocking her cries, enveloping her in a cold, flickering embrace that threatened to snuff out her resolve. Suddenly, a cool breeze whispered through the darkness, chilling her skin. It carried echoes of laughter, young and innocent, mixed with shrill cries that spiraled through the suffocating air. It felt like the chorus of spirits, drawing her deeper into despair. She fought against the urge to succumb to that wretched sound. "Max! Answer me!" Desperation surged through her veins. Then, just as suddenly, light pierced through the dark, a small, glimmering flash. Jessica's eyes widened. "Max!" She stumbled toward the light, and as she approached, she discerned a form within it. "Mommy!" His voice was clear, yet strained. A flicker of hope washed over her, overwhelming the fear that had tightened its grip moments before. "Stay there!" she yelled, moving toward him. She reached for him, pulling against the darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. The light swam and pulsed, almost like a heartbeat waiting to be born again. The ground beneath her began to shift. "No, no, no!" Jessica gasped as jagged tendrils of darkness lashed out, binding her legs in a vicious grip. The shadows howled, a tortured chorus that enveloped her. She felt it wrap around her like a rope, pulling her down into a cold abyss. "Mommy, help!" Max's voice echoed, a desperate plea that sliced through her heart. "I'm coming!" Jessica roared, her voice rising above the chaos. She willed herself forward, forcing her way through the clutch of shadows. "Let go of me!" With each anguished scream, she summoned the last of her strength, inching toward the light. Max's figure grew clearer, the warmth of the glow revealing his face, wide-eyed with fear but filled with trust. "Mommy! Please!" Then the shadows shrieked, an unholy cacophony, as though angry that they were losing their prey. The Truth Keeper's laughter echoed in the distance, a chilling serenade, sharpening the tension in her veins. "What do you want from us?" she shouted, but her voice trembled beneath the weight of their menace. "To keep the truth buried." The creature's words were laced with venomous delight, increasing her panic. "You will never escape." Searing pain shot through Jessica's chest, as if their words struck her directly. Doubt surged within. What were they hiding? Was her son's safety worth the price of knowledge? But the desperate look in Max's eyes shattered her hesitation. "We won't let you take us." With renewed energy, she surged toward him. She wasn't about to let the shadows prevail. Clarity dawned in her mind. This was not just a fight for survival, it was for the very essence of their souls. She plunged forward, arms outstretched, but as she reached for Max, the truth wrestled for dominance inside her. "Mommy!" he screamed, as the light split open, brimming with an intensity that was almost blinding. Jessica gritted her teeth and dove into the light, the shadows screeching around them, sucking back in panic. But the ground trembled violently, the light threatening to extinguish as the shadows writhed, clawing back. "Hold on!" she cried as she felt a wave of pressure push against her. Time slammed to a stop, both dread and hope coiling in her chest. And then it happened. The light exploded around them, radiating fierce and bright, a blinding arc that seemed to fracture the very fabric of reality. Jessica's heart thundered as she felt momentary peace, a deceptive hush, until an unrelenting darkness overshadowed her once more, whispering another truth. What if you are the key to unleash it all? The light flickered as their world spun violently, arms and shadows intertwining, leaving her breathless. "With every ounce of hope and terror," Jessica screamed, "we'll find the truth together." And as the shadows surged, she met the darkness head-on, ready to battle whatever horrors awaited her. In that moment, the choice lay bare: confront the truth or lose everything. But in the depths of her heart, a chilling question lingered, echoing within the void. What if the truth was the most terrifying thing of all? Jessica clutched Max's hand tighter, the warmth of his small fingers providing solace as a cacophony of screams tore through the void. The glowing light pulsed quicker now, vibrating with their synchronized heartbeats. She could feel the darkness, the whispers, the shadows writhing as they dug deeper, trying to engulf them anew. "Stay close," she urged again, ready to fight whatever horror awaited just beyond the veil of that blinding light. She could sense the creature closing in, its shadowy form shifting like smoke, hands eager to tear her from her son. "Mommy, I'm scared." Max's voice quavered, each syllable pulling at Jessica's heartstrings as they ricocheted through the darkness. "I know, sweetheart, but we can't let it take us. We can't give in," she replied, pulling him into a fierce embrace. "We have to face our fears together." As if provoked by her confidence, the shadows howled, feeding off her resolve, a chilling, violent sound that echoed through the immensity surrounding them. Within the blinding light, pieces of Jessica's memories began to hover around her like shards of glass, moments she thought were lost, family laughter, their cozy home, her husband's gentle smile. Yet, dark edges marred these memories, memories that haunted her every day. They were tethered to the shadows, weaving through time like a whisper in the wind. The creature lurched closer, looming overhead. "You cannot escape the truth that binds you. Reveal your secrets and set your spirit free." Its voice was a silken, sinister melody that dripped with malice. "No!" she shouted, her voice slicing through its darkness. "I won't let you twist our memories. My love is stronger than your lies." As her voice thundered against the wailing shadows, the brightness intensified, casting an almost blinding light through the darkened realm. She saw a familiar figure within the glow, a ghostly silhouette of her husband, standing watch with an ethereal grace. "Jessica!" he called, a soft voice that wrapped around her like a warm embrace. "You have the strength to break these chains. Use your love." The shadows writhed, reacting violently to his presence. "No! You won't take them from me!" it screeched, each word smashing against her resolve like waves against a stony shore. "Mommy, please! Max cried, the tremor back in his small voice. She felt him shiver, and something inside her snapped. She couldn't allow him to be afraid, not now. Max! Look at me! She urged, gripping his shoulders. We can do this. We face whatever we must together. The words flowed from her, each carrying the weight of every sacrifice she had ever made, every tragedy she had ever faced. In that moment, she felt the truth. The air thickened, swirling like a tempest, and the light flared behind her. Mommy, what's the truth? Max asked, his young eyes searching hers, innocent yet understanding far too much. Jessica inhaled sharply, tears brimming as she chose to share. The truth is that I didn't protect them. I let fear take me, and I abandoned your father. Her voice trembled but was firm, steadying against the raging winds of darkness. But I won't abandon you. Not now, not ever. The shadows fell silent, pausing momentarily as if stunned. It became a fragile moment of clarity amid chaos. Together, we are stronger. She declared. We face the truth now, not as shadows, but as one. With those words reverberating in the timeless space, the swirling shadows recoiled in contempt, and an unsettling rumble echoed, challenging her resoluteness. No! You cannot face it. You are frail, human. You will endure solitude and pain for eternity. The creature screeched. But Jessica felt the warmth of hope tide through her veins, feeding off the bond between her and Max. We will not surrender. She screamed, echoing his name as she pressed onward, illuminating the shadows around them with fiercely burning light. The floor beneath them cracked wide open, revealing an abyss filled with pale, straining faces, tormented souls of those who had been lost in the darkness. Each soul screamed silently, beckoning for help. The truth was a. Wait, but she stood firm. They did not choose this. I will not allow you to claim my heart. Jessica shouted. Suddenly, the light surged. In a blinding flash, all the wraiths howled in agony before falling, consumed by the rush of illumination. The creature howled louder, an anguished sound that twisted her insides. Stop! You cannot escape! It called, but the truth battered against its form, forcing it back. Mommy! It's trying to come for me! Max's voice broke through the fog as he pulled at Jessica's sleeve. I've got you, baby. Hold on. She cried, feeling the light burn hotter. With one more push, Jessica shouted, together. And resisted the dizzying rush of the void, their hearts racing as if synchronized with the furious pulse of the universe. The light widened, taking over, and just as they were about to be consumed by the shadows forever, the world shimmered into focus again. They emerged, gasping, into a familiar room, a soft sunlit glow pouring through the window, the walls painted a gentle hue of safety. She blinked and saw Max's bed, neatly made with his dinosaur blanket draping carefully atop it. They were home. But the echoes of the past lingered, she felt it settle like dust. Mommy, it's okay? Max whispered, voice trembling as he looked around him, the innocence of childhood resurfacing in his gaze. Yes, Jessica breathed, drawing him close as warmth bloomed in her chest. Everything will be okay. We faced the dark together. The shadows were gone, but their memories were not. Each secret, every loss she had tried to flee from, whispered through the air reminders of the past she had to confront. But as she inhaled deeply, she believed they could start anew. And just like that, they turned together towards the glow of the new day that awaited them. The echoes of truths would still hum softly in the back of her mind, but they bore a new understanding that love anchored them always against whatever darkness may come. In that moment, hope dawned. So here is the final key: love prevails. You need to subscribe now to never miss out on stories like this. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this crazy ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is crucial for us to keep delivering these exclusive tales.